I had no savings, no stocks, no crypto, nothing, just a bank account with a near-zero balance, and a dream to build real wealth. I wasn't looking for shortcuts, I was looking for a plan, and so I built one. Today I'm sharing my personal wealth plan, the one I'm still following. It won't make you rich overnight. But if you're serious about financial freedom, it just might change your life. According to Bankrate's 2024 report, the financial reality for most Americans is more precarious than ever. The numbers are sobering, and they paint a picture of a nation where financial security feels out of reach for the majority. It's not just a statistic, it's a daily struggle that millions of people face quietly behind closed doors. 57% of Americans can't afford a $1,000 emergency expense. That means more than half of us are just one unexpected car repair, medical bill, or home emergency away from real financial hardship. It's a stressful way to live, always wondering if the next surprise will be the one that tips everything over the edge. And when we look at millennials, the picture doesn't get much brighter. The average millennial has just over $2,000 in total savings. That's not just for emergencies, that's for everything: rent, groceries, future plans, and dreams. It's a number that can disappear in a single month or even a single week, if life throws a curveball. But here's the thing: we're not broke because we don't work hard. In fact, most of us are working harder than ever, juggling multiple jobs, side hustles, and long hours just to keep up. We're putting in the effort, sacrificing time with family and friends, and pushing ourselves to the limit. The problem isn't a lack of hustle or ambition. We're broke because we don't have a system. Without a clear plan, it's easy to get lost in the chaos of bills, expenses, and financial obligations. Money comes in, money goes out, and at the end of the month, we're left wondering where it all went. It's not about intelligence or willpower, it's about structure. I didn't have a system either, not at first. I was living life in financial defense mode, always reacting to the next crisis, the next bill, the next emergency. I was constantly on edge, feeling like I was just barely keeping my head above water. It was exhausting, and it felt like I was never making any real progress. I realized I was stuck in a cycle of reacting, never building. That's when everything changed. I stopped asking myself, how do I survive the month? And started asking a different question. I began to wonder, what would it look like to actually build something, to create a foundation that could weather any storm? I realized that surviving wasn't enough. I wanted to thrive, so I made a plan. I started small, setting up savings jars for different goals, tracking every dollar and building a system that worked for me. It wasn't about making huge changes overnight, it was about taking consistent, intentional steps toward financial security, and eventually, wealth. This chapter is about that shift. From reacting to building, from surviving to thriving, and it all starts with a plan. This is my 4-phase blueprint. Phase 1, survival, escape paycheck to paycheck living. Phase 2, stability, build a financial safety net. Phase 3, growth, start investing for real returns. Phase 4, freedom, create passive income and long-term wealth. In this episode, I'll walk you through phase 1 and 2, how I went from zero to my first $5,000 saved. Simple steps, consistent action, no gimmicks. First, I tracked everything. Every dollar in, every dollar out. I wanted to know exactly where my money was going, down to the last cent. It was uncomfortable at first, seeing the numbers in black and white, but it was the only way to face the truth. I realized that for years I'd been guessing about my finances, hoping things would work out. But hope isn't a strategy, so I made a promise to myself: no more hiding from the numbers. I wrote down every expense, no matter how small: coffee, bus fare, late night snacks, it all counted. I created a simple budget in Google Sheets. Nothing fancy, just truth. I didn't use any complicated formulas or apps at first, just columns for income and expenses and a running total at the bottom. The goal wasn't perfection. It was honesty. I wanted to see in real time how my choices added up. Every week I'd sit down and update the sheet, sometimes dreading what I'd find but always feeling a little more in control afterward. That spreadsheet became my financial mirror. It showed me patterns I'd never noticed before, like how much I was spending on takeout, or how small purchases added up fast. Here's what my first month looked like: raw, unfiltered, and a little bit scary. I was earning just enough to scrape by, but at least now, I knew exactly where I stood. My income was limited, but seeing it all laid out gave me a sense of clarity I'd never had before. I could finally see the gaps, the leaks, and the opportunities to do better. It was the first time I felt like I had a fighting chance. Part-time job, $1,000. That was my starting line. It wasn't much, but it was something. I picked up every shift I could, sometimes working late nights or weekends just to make ends meet. Every paycheck felt like a small victory, proof that I was moving forward, even if it was just inch by inch. I learned to appreciate the value of every dollar I earned because I knew how hard I'd worked for it. Rent, minus $400. That was my biggest expense, and it always stung to see that chunk disappear from my account. But having a roof over my head was non-negotiable. I learned to budget for it first, before anything else. Some months paying rent meant making sacrifices elsewhere, but I never missed a payment. Stability, even in a tiny apartment, was worth every penny. Food, minus $200. I had to get creative. I learned to cook simple meals, buy in bulk, and stretch every ingredient. Meal prepping became my secret weapon. I'd spend Sunday afternoons chopping vegetables, boiling rice, and portioning out meals for the week. It wasn't glamorous, but it kept me fed and healthy. I stopped eating out, swapped fancy coffee for homemade, and discovered that a little planning went a long way. Miscellaneous, minus $100. This covered everything else: bus fare, toiletries, the occasional treat. I tried to keep this category as small as possible, but life always threw in a few surprises. I learned to expect the unexpected and to leave a little wiggle room in my budget for those moments. Every dollar I didn't spend here was a dollar I could save. That left me with $300, and I saved it. Every month, no matter how tight things got, I made saving a priority. Cutting costs wasn't easy. It meant saying no to things I wanted and sometimes even things I needed. But I knew that every dollar I saved was a step away from zero, a step toward freedom. I started small, but I stayed consistent. Over time, those small amounts added up. I shared a tiny apartment, I cooked in bulk, I canceled subscriptions, I found ways to cut costs that I'd never considered before. I learned to live with less, and to appreciate what I had. My friends and I swapped clothes, shared meals, and supported each other. We made it work, even when it wasn't easy. Every sacrifice felt like an investment in my future. But I treated saving money like a mission. It wasn't just about pinching pennies. It was about building a habit, a mindset. I set small goals for myself. Save $50 this week, $100 next month. I celebrated every milestone, no matter how small. Saving became a game, and every win made me more determined to keep going. I realized that discipline was more important than income. If I could save on a tight budget, I could save on any budget. After 5 months, I had $1,500 in savings. That's when I knew this was possible. I wasn't rich, but I was no longer living paycheck to paycheck. I had a cushion, a little bit of breathing room. That money represented more than just numbers. It was proof that I could change my situation, one decision at a time. It gave me confidence to keep going, to dream a little bigger. You don't need a 6-figure salary to start building wealth. You need control. You need honesty, discipline, and a willingness to start where you are. Getting off zero isn't about luck or privilege. It's about making the most of what you have and refusing to give up. If I could do it, so can you. The first step is the hardest, but it's also the most important. Start today and watch what happens. Next came stability. After years of feeling like I was constantly treading water, I realized I needed a solid foundation if I ever wanted to move forward. It wasn't just about making more money or cutting back on lattes. It was about creating a sense of security that I'd never really had before. I wanted to wake up in the morning and not feel that pit in my stomach, worrying about what would happen if something went wrong. Because honestly, I was still just one emergency away from broke. Every unexpected expense, a flat tire, a medical bill, even a higher than usual electric bill, felt like it could send my whole life spiraling. I remember nights lying awake, running through worst-case scenarios in my head, wondering how I'd get by if my paycheck was late or if I lost my job. That kind of stress is exhausting, and it made me realize I needed a plan. So I built what I call the stability stack. It started with an emergency fund, just a small cushion at first, but enough to keep me from panicking every time something unexpected happened. Then, I committed to a zero-based budget, where every dollar had a job. No more guessing where my money went each month. I tracked every expense, no matter how small, and made sure I was intentional with every purchase. And I made it a habit to review my finances every single week. Sunday evenings became my time to check in with my money, looking over what I'd spent, what was coming up, and making adjustments as needed. It wasn't always easy, but it gave me a sense of control I'd never felt before. Over time, these small habits started to add up, and I could see real progress. I set a goal to save $3,000, enough to cover 3 months of expenses if something went wrong. That number felt huge at first, almost impossible. But I broke it down into smaller milestones, celebrating every $100 I managed to put away. I tracked my progress on a savings tracker, and seeing that number grow gave me hope. To reach my goal, I got creative. I picked up weekend gigs, everything from working at the local farmer's market to delivering food. I started flipping things online, selling clothes I didn't wear and gadgets I didn't use. Every extra dollar went straight into my emergency fund. It wasn't glamorous, but it was empowering to know I was taking control of my future. And seriously, I saved every dollar I could. I cut back on takeout, found free ways to have fun, and made saving a game. I even started collecting spare change and putting it in a jar. It was amazing how quickly the little things added up. I learned to appreciate the progress, no matter how slow it felt at times. By month 10, I hit my goal. I remember the moment I updated my tracker and realized I'd actually done it. I celebrated with a homemade dinner and called a friend to share the news. It wasn't just about the money. It was about proving to myself that I could set a goal and reach it, even when it felt impossible at first. For the first time, I felt safe. There was a sense of calm I'd never experienced before. I could breathe easier, knowing that if life threw me a curveball, I had a buffer. I wasn't constantly on edge, waiting for the next crisis. Instead, I started to feel hopeful about the future. I wasn't living in fear of car repairs or surprise bills anymore. I could handle life's little emergencies without panic. Building stability wasn't just about money. It was about peace of mind and finally having the freedom to dream about what could come next. I kept myself accountable with tools: Notion for my wealth dashboard, Google Sheets for my budget, Mint and YNAB for expense tracking, and Excel for emergency fund visuals. I turned it into a game. Every $100 saved was a level up. Gamifying my money made it actually exciting. Progress became addictive. It wasn't just about the money, it was about becoming the kind of person who builds wealth. I started waking up earlier, reading about money and reflecting on my weekly goals. I created no-spend weekends. I stopped buying to impress people. I stopped being reactive and started becoming intentional. Every habit added up. With $5,000 in savings, I was ready to level up. Welcome to Phase 3 Growth. This is where investing begins. In the next episode, I'll share my first portfolio, what I invested in, how much I started with, and how I designed it to grow with peace of mind. I started this journey with $0. No tricks, no luck, just consistent, intentional steps. And if I can do it, starting from nothing, so can you. Start with a plan, stick to the process, watch the results compound. Drop a comment below. I'm starting at state the amount at the comment section. Let's build this community together and support each other's progress. Like this video if you found it helpful, and don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an update. Episode 2 is coming up next. I built my first investment portfolio. Here's what's in it. You won't want to miss it. Your wealth journey starts today. Let's take the first step together.